Semiconductor companies are increasingly interested in establishing manufacturing plants in India due to the country's strategic push to become a global hub for chip production, driven by government incentives like the $10 billion Production-Linked Incentive (PLI) scheme, which offers financial support for semiconductor and display fabrication units. India's vast consumer market, growing tech industry, and skilled workforce make it an attractive alternative to China, especially as global supply chains seek to diversify away from geopolitical risks. Major players like Intel, TSMC, and Micron are exploring investments in India, with Micron already announcing a $2.75 billion assembly and testing facility in Gujarat. Additionally, India's partnerships with the US, Japan, and Taiwan under initiatives like the Quad and the India-US Initiative on Critical and Emerging Technology, ICET, further strengthen its position in the semiconductor supply chain. This shift has angered China, which has long dominated global semiconductor manufacturing and views India's rise as a direct threat to its economic and geopolitical influence. Chinese state media and officials have criticized India's semiconductor ambitions, accusing the West of trying to contain China's growth by supporting India's chip-making capabilities. Beijing fears that as more companies relocate production to India, China could lose its monopoly over electronics manufacturing, weakening its position in global trade and technology wars. The Chinese government has responded by increasing subsidies for its domestic semiconductor industry and imposing stricter export controls on key materials, but India's rapid progress, combined with Western support, suggests that China's dominance in the sector may indeed be slowly eroding, fueling Beijing's frustration and strategic anxiety. The global semiconductor industry is undergoing a significant shift as major chip manufacturers increasingly look toward India as a key destination for building new fabrication plants, fabs, and assembly, testing, marking, and packaging (ATMP) facilities. This trend is driven by India's aggressive push to establish itself as a semiconductor manufacturing powerhouse, supported by the Indian government's $10 billion Production-Linked Incentive (PLI) scheme, which offers substantial financial incentives, tax breaks, and infrastructure support to attract global semiconductor giants. Additionally, India's rapidly growing domestic demand for electronics, fueled by its booming smartphone, automotive, and consumer electronics markets, makes it an ideal location for chip production, reducing reliance on imports and strengthening supply chain resilience. The country's large pool of skilled engineers, competitive labor costs, and strategic geopolitical positioning as a democratic alternative to China further enhance its appeal. Multinational corporations like Micron have already committed to building a $2.75 billion ATMP facility in Gujarat, while Tata Group is partnering with Taiwan's Powerchip Semiconductor Manufacturing Corporation, PSMC, to set up a $11 billion fab in Dholera. Similarly, US-based Applied Materials and India's CG Power are investing in semiconductor assembly projects, signaling strong confidence in India's potential as a future chip-making hub. China, which has long dominated global semiconductor manufacturing, views India's rise in this sector with deep concern and frustration. Beijing has invested heavily in its domestic chip industry through initiatives like the Made in China 2025 plan, aiming for self-sufficiency in advanced semiconductors. However, US-led export controls on cutting-edge technology, such as restrictions on ASML's EUV lithography machines, have hampered China's ability to produce high-end chips, forcing it to focus on mature node manufacturing. Meanwhile, India's emergence as a viable alternative, backed by Western investments and technology transfers, threatens China's dominance in global electronics supply chains. Chinese state media has lashed out at these developments, accusing the US and its allies of decoupling from China and artificially propping up India to undermine Beijing's economic and technological supremacy. The Chinese government has retaliated by tightening export controls on critical raw materials like gallium and germanium, while ramping up subsidies for its domestic semiconductor firms. Despite China's efforts, the semiconductor industry's gradual shift toward India reflects broader geopolitical realignments, with democracies seeking to reduce dependence on Chinese manufacturing amid rising tensions over Taiwan, trade wars, and national security concerns. India's ability to attract major investments, combined with its improving infrastructure, policy support, and partnerships with Japan, the US, and Taiwan, positions it as a formidable competitor in the semiconductor space. While China remains the world's largest chip producer for now, its anger and anxiety over India's growing influence in the sector highlight a significant power struggle in the tech industry, one that could reshape global supply chains and weaken Beijing's long-held economic leverage. As more companies diversify production to India, China's grip on semiconductor manufacturing may continue to erode, marking a pivotal shift in the balance of technological and economic power.